Everything is grey, everything is awful. Charlize Theron is wearing a kebab. Okay, hi, welcome back. That was a weak-ass clap. Okay, as per the title of the video, I went and saw the Odyssey at my local cinema. Not a fancy IMAX cinema. I don't have any IMAX, not even the non-fancy one, next to my home, so I went to a regular schmegular cinema. And I watched the Odyssey, all 3 hours, with some of my friends. They are all in humanity courses. There are some who are very, very opinionated about movies. I am the only STEM major. I am an engineering major, but I'm also very opinionated. I took cinematography 4 years straight in high school. These are my credentials. I also took some notes after watching the movie, and I have a giant bottle of fancy water because it's so hot. And I want to talk about the movie. Let's just give the movie a general score. I think this, in the Nolan movie cinematic universe, scores a 6.5. It's not a fail movie. I can give it a pass, but it's definitely not his best movie, and it's not his worst. I still think the worst is Tenet. And you can fight me. I know that my dad actually really likes Tenet, but I still have a lot to talk about the things that I didn't like, about the things that I did like. This is what I liked. This is what I didn't like. So you can see how it's kind of unbalanced. But I wanted to start with the things that I actually liked, because this is not a bad movie per se. I think there are some parts of the movie that if it was just them, it would have been a 5-star, 10 out of 10 movie. And those parts are the horror ones. Yes, there is horror in the Odyssey. And those are the scenes in which the otherness of magic, of the gods' magic, is shown. So, in the Odyssey, none of the gods are shown. Never. You never see the gods. You just see their actions that could be translated into it's just the sea, it's just a storm, it's just clouds. But it was how the people saw this natural phenomenon and said, oh, this must be the gods, which is what built the epics, the myth. That part, I really, really liked how it was built. I also really liked how we still get some supernatural elements. So we get the Cyclops, we get Polyphemus, we get Circe, the sorcerer, we get the sirens. So we get these supernatural aspects. We get Scylla and Charybdis. If I use the Italian names, I'm very, very sorry. I studied epics in high school and in middle school and in primary school, and I used all Italian names. I think especially Polyphemus with the sheeps and the Circe scenes are wonderfully crafted. It's eerie, it's dark, it's everything that makes your stomach clench because it's so other. When you see how Circe transforms the men into pigs and she uses her hands, she reaches down into their throat to pull them out of their skin into the flesh, to just like transform them into what they really are in that moment. So pigs. This is a scene taken straight out of Spirited Away, by the way. Nolan is no stranger to taking things out of animes and claiming them as their own. Inception is clearly Paprika. I really, really love those scenes, especially because it puts the otherness of the magic of the gods. You can never know what these people are thinking, what these creatures are thinking, because they're so other, they're so separate, they're so powerful that mere men are ants. And it's reiterated in the movie that they see people, humans, as ants. So they do not communicate. Do you communicate with ants? No, you do not. I also think some of the photography of the movie, some of those shots, like the long shots, are so beautiful. There is especially one scene with Odysseus on a beach, and I think it's the beach with Calypso. It's wonderful, it's beautiful. There is this white, stark white beach, and he's the only creature there, and the tide is low. It's a beautiful, beautiful shot. Same with the sirens, very beautiful shot. The fog is used as this kind of like, it's giving mystique to the scene. And I also really love the score. the music, the soundtrack. But I already knew that. That's the focal point. Like, that's the strong point of every Nolan's movie. The soundtrack is always beautiful. And I really, really liked how they used the soundtrack as kind of like a physical, tangible thing in some scenes with the bow. When you struck a bow, you can hear a chord playing, a very similar chord every time. I also really liked the sea people theory. I do not like how it's put in the movie, like how they talk about it, but a theory of the sea people, which is a true theory that exists in the historical community. I think it's a very interesting concept to put into a movie about the Odyssey. I want to talk about an actor in particular, the pig's attendant, so the last remains of the followers of Odysseus. That actor, which I do not remember the name. He's a Colombian actor, very, very famous, very, very good. He puts on the performance of his life. I think that that's the best actor that we get in the movie. He is blind, he's very, very poor, but he still has an air of dignity even when he gets beat up. We do not talk about the dogs into the movie. But I think that performance is the best out of all the movie. Now let's talk about the things that I didn't like, which were many. First of all, is the script. I did not know that, but Nolan wrote the movie himself. Why? Why did you do that when you don't have the chops to do that? And he chooses to do this, dumbs it all down. The dialogue is so contemporary. At one point, they talk about Penelope, and Telemachus is like, "Oh, mommy, mommy." And I'm like, what? At one point, they talk about themselves, the people from Ithaca, they talk about, we are the Greeks, talking with other people from the Greek islands, and they're like, we are the Greeks, so are them. Everything is so like written for little kids who do not have a huge vocabulary. Also, there's this thing that I don't think Nolan knows what it is. It's called narrative register. So if you have a low register, it's basically what they use in kids' movies or in kids' books. Very limited vocabulary because they still have to learn their words. They don't have many abstract concepts. A high register is very flowery. They use very big words, very intricate words. Usually they're very differential towards mothers and fathers. Like Penelope is a queen, Ulysses or Odysseus is a king. Telemachus wouldn't talk with his mother, calling her mom and just saying like whatever he thinks. And the narrative register goes up and down. It doesn't matter who is talking. It goes up and down inside the same sentence. And it's such a whiplash, because it puts you out of the story. You're talking about ancient Greeks. We're talking about Mycenaeus. There are also some parts of the script that are like taken out of a Hollywood movies from the early 2000s. Like, oh my God, this is so cool. We have to write this. Jesus Christ. I need American actors to stop using Botox for once. I need to see your eyebrows moving. Charlize Theron. Charlize Theron is one of the worst, I think, in the movie, because you can clearly see she's so yassified to the gods. Every scene that she's in, she's mugging everybody else. And you can clearly see, she's the only one where you can clearly see that she has makeup on. Like you can see the sheen of the foundation on her cheeks. She also have what the kids will call iPhone face. She has such a modern face because she's so Botox to the gods. Why is she Calypso? I have no idea. But also I need American actors to start opening their mouth. I need them to start going to theater lessons immediately, expeditiously. Half of the time I cannot understand what they're saying, and I saw it in the original language. I saw it in English with subtitles. Thank the fucking gods for subtitles, because half of the time, especially Matt Damon is the worst offender. Him and Tom Holland. They just talk like this because they're real men and they're suffering and they have PTSD. And like, not showing emotions on your face while you're in a movie doesn't make you like more gruff or grizzly or like a suffering man. Just makes you a terrible actor. Hi, Editing Alice here. I clearly forgot to tell you that one of the actors that actually nailed the theatricality that was needed in the Odyssey because a lot of people do not understand that this is an epic poem, that it's meant to be told orally, was Lupita Nyong'o. Lupita Nyong'o did a wonderful job for how ignorant were her comments before the release of this movie, because they were ignorant. She, with her theater degrees, with her humanity degrees, did not know what the Odyssey was before the movie, but she clearly nailed what was supposed to be everybody's job in the Odyssey. She had 2 parts, and they were both very, very tiny, but she nailed them. And talking about terrible actors, Tom Holland was a miscast. Tom Holland was the worst in the movie. He is a comedic actor. He's a very successful comedic actor. He is Spider-Man. I don't think a dramatic role suits him at all. I don't think he has the chops for it right now, at least. And Zendaya, you could cut her out of the movie. She's there for 5 seconds. She says 5 obvieties, like 5 obvious things that we had already seen or heard from other characters, and then she poofs out of existence. If you cut her out of the movie, nothing happens, and that's, I think, a grave error for a movie that's still, it's full of characters. They wrote a part especially for Elliot Page. Like, I think Sinon, I think that's the name of the character, the name of the warrior. He's not in the original Odyssey. He's an original character that they wrote especially for Elliot Page to be in the movie. The aesthetics and the costumes. Now, I know, I read the interviews. This is supposed to be how the Romans would see the Odyssey, picture it in their minds. Fucking false. It's just laziness, because the Romans had beautiful colored temples. They had wonderful colors in their clothes. They would dye it purple and red and green, and if you were very, very rich, blue. Why is everything fucking gray? The aesthetics doesn't lend anything to the movie. It doesn't make it cooler. It doesn't make it, I don't know, more gruff. It doesn't even give the atmosphere of a man escaping from war. It just gives gray. It just gives flat, especially because some of the scenes are incredibly beautifully colored and some of them are gray with no discernment whatsoever. We do not talk about the armors. They look like plastic. Especially Agamemnon. That's the worst offender. There's Roman aesthetic and then Greek aesthetic, and then everything in between. Everything is gray. Everything is awful. Charlize Theron is wearing a kebab. And this lends me to my next point, which is the mistakes in the actual movie construction. I have 2 that are still clear in my mind. There's one in which we have a tempest, we have a storm. So we have the very close-up shot of Odysseus, and he's in the storm, he's drenched, everything is gray, everything is dark and black. And then we see the shot of the whole ship, so taken from a drone, and the sky is clear. We have 2 drops of water. The water of the sea is perfect, still blue. And then we get back to the storm. Who approved this? And then there's another one at the very beginning of the movie in which Odysseus and Penelope, they're talking, very intimately talking. And in the shot, they're both in the shot. So the focus goes on Penelope when she's talking, and then it focuses on Odysseus when he's talking. At one point, they make a mistake in which they focus, I think, on Penelope when Odysseus is talking, and you see the focus going in and out very, very rapidly. And you can clearly see that they realize they've made a mistake, saying they put it in the movie. They didn't take it out. I think that's just sloppy. And I know I was the only one who noticed it in my whole group of friends. But I noticed it. It was noticeable. I don't know if they just chose to put it because of something artistic, but it was just sloppy, I think. Going with the script, I think the whole fall of civilization, which is a very huge theme in the Odyssey and in the Odyssey movie, it was done so poorly that at one point when they tell you, this is the fall of the Age of Bronze. How would the characters of the Odyssey know that they're in the Age of Bronze, which we have established in modern times that this is called the Age of Bronze? editing Alice once again. I think it's also very funny when they tell you, oh, the fall of the age of bronze, and then they use so much iron in the movie, like so many things are made of iron. Well, sure. And they talk about the fall of civilization as if they had insights from either the gods or Nolan himself, but they don't. So it's just like the Odyssey talked about in contemporary terms by the characters that are still living in the Odyssey, which is very bizarre. Oh, the fighting, and the whole last hour, I think. Awful. It has been a long time since I think I've seen Batman vs. Superman that I've watched people fighting and I said, this is fucking awful. Whoever choreographed this had no idea what they wanted to do with the characters which are on the scenes, okay? The whole last hour in which Odysseus comes back to Ithaca, he proves himself as Odysseus, and then he has to slaughter all of the other men that wanted to marry Penelope. That whole entire scene lasts like a quarter of an hour. It's so long. And people are just like gnashing their swords together. It's so awful, so awfully lit, because the lighting is also awful in that scene. They try to give Telemachus some airtime because you have to show at this point that Telemachus has grown up as a man, but he's still the same fucking brat as the beginning, because he flops around, he has swords, and he has some kind of weapons in his hand, and he just launches them. You could say, if you've seen the movie, that Ulysses or Odysseus is the same as his son, because Odysseus in this movie is fucking dumb, but we'll talk about it later. If I, the average watcher of these movies, can say that, I think that's a grave mistake. This is, I think, what I took as the gravest offense. Odysseus, from Homeric hero, from the most intelligent man in the whole Greek islands, in the whole of Greece, becomes a Hollywood hero. He's Bruce Wayne with none of the intelligence. He's just brooding Batman. He is a man that is riddled with PTSD from the war, which could have been very interesting, but he is the same from the beginning up to the end. You could say that Matt Damon did not put his all Matt Denusi into it, because he has the same expression in all fucking scenes. I don't know, in men, because they have a lot of wrinkles, they do not get Botox as much. It masks a lot. He has a lot of cover-ups on his head. He has a long beard, so you can't actually see when he's switching between emotions, but he's the same fucking Hollywood stoic suffering man up until the end, and he never grows. He's fucking stupid in this movie. Odysseus was chosen by the gods because of his incredible intelligence. In this movie, he's the stupidest man fucking alive. At one point, they're escaping from Polyphemus, and they're safe. Polyphemus is not running after them. He pulls out his bow and shoots an arrow just because he's angry. He's angry and he just wants another revenge. Polyphemus is blind at this point. Polyphemus is enraged by this arrow and starts running after them and kills another couple of men who could have been saved by this action. And this is the start of the end for Odysseus, because his men do not trust him anymore. But there are so many other instances in which we can clearly see that Odysseus in the original text is an incredibly intelligent man, and his men's distrust is just because the gods wanted him alone at the end of the journey. And in this movie, they dumb it down to make it so the mutiny is more like a thing of the man and not a thing of the gods. But why make it so the number one quality of Odysseus, the thing that makes him special, the things that makes the mythos and the epic what it is, his intelligence. He built the horse that they bring into Troy. The design of the horse is also fucking awful. Why is it on just two legs? Why is it so detailed? We do not talk about it. But I think this is the result of seeing the Odyssey and the Iliad just as a fantasy novel. And the Odyssey and the Iliad are not fantasy novels. fantasy builds upon the mythos and the epics, but mythos and epics were born of men trying to explain natural phenomenon. They truly believed that that was what was happening. The gods are not just some creatures that you can write about, and the characters aren't just characters. Those were real people. For the real people of that time. Gods were real gods, because thunder in the sky meant that Zeus was angry, and a storm meant that Poseidon was angry, and another war brewing was, they prayed to Athena because Athena had to be with them when they were strategizing. This is not a fantasy novel. Epics and fantasy are completely different terms. Fantasy is a modern, contemporary concept. The epics and mythos are not, they're ancient. And reading the Odyssey as a fantasy book just gives you nothing of what the Odyssey is. I think this is just like truly what anti-intellectualism is. You can read the Odyssey as a dumbed out version when you're a kid, but when you're an adult, you have to have the critical thinking of saying, this is epic, so I have to read it and study it as an epic poem. It's not just a book. It's just as a fantasy book. It's an epic poem. And this is what I will leave you with my thoughts on the Odyssey. We could talk about also the environmental impact of Nolan leaving all of his props on the bottom of the Mediterranean and Ionic Sea, where he was filming, especially in the coasts of Italy, where I live. Or the boat that he permanently damaged that he got from a non-profit and then never paid back. Or the fact that he filmed while being very rich, like being uber rich. He filmed on occupied land in Morocco because it was cheaper. Yeah. We just don't have time. I am not interested in that part. I wanted to analyze the movie as a movie. So, if you want some more of me, I have some socials down below. Next video will be much more book focused, I promise, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye! Mwah.